The Faceless Man. The overground metro train was pulling into Yaba station, and Amaka pressed the door release button. The doors screeched open. Without waiting for the train to fully stop, he jumped onto the platform. He couldn't stand another moment in that sluggish train with its stale air. Pressing close to an elderly man, Amaka deftly slipped through the exit turnstile, once again riding for free. The facial recognition system automatically deducted fares from every person passing the cameras. But Amaka was wearing a mask. The cameras didn't see him, and he rode free once more. Masks had long become a common accessory for Lagos youth. For their parents, they were more of a ritual attribute. But for young people, whose numbers had grown significantly in recent decades, masks had become a fashion trend and, conveniently, a way to fool surveillance cameras. Lagos, the largest city in West Africa, had somewhere between 27 and 33 million inhabitants. Every counting method produced a different figure. 5 years ago, the government had strictly limited newcomers, considering even those born in other parts of Nigeria as migrants. Wandering dreamers like Amaka had to constantly search for shelter, arranging places to stay in illegal apartments, dormitories, markets, bus stations, or even under overpasses. Amaka had met many homeless people who ended up on the streets for various reasons. Some had their homes demolished to make way for new shopping centers. Others had recently arrived in Nigeria from even poorer countries. Still others were simply destitute vagrants. Nigeria was a young country with a median age of just 21, the result of high birth rates. But not all citizens of the world's third most populous nation benefited from this. Some parts of Lagos were suffocating from an excess of youth, but the Yaba district was thriving. It had earned the nickname Silicon Valley of West Africa and stood out for its order, fresh air, and high-tech lifestyle. Pedestrians could activate cartoon characters on billboards and interact with them using gestures. Cleaning robots tirelessly scurried through the streets, collecting and sorting garbage. The district was incredibly clean. Household waste was sent to recycling centers and converted into renewable materials and biofuel. Eco-friendly bamboo had suddenly become a fashion trend, not just a building material, at least for Yaba residents. Leaving the station, Amaka raised his smart stream to eye level and overlaid an active virtual map onto the surrounding landscape. Following the plotted route, he reached a quiet alley. The company Liele, which he was looking for, appeared to be on the third floor of a gray building numbered 237. 2 days ago, he had received a mysterious anonymous email from Liele with a job offer that, according to the message, would surely be right up his alley. The position was practically his, it said, but he needed to appear in person for an interview. A mere formality, standard procedure. Amaka entered a small reception area on the third floor, and a smiling receptionist immediately pointed at his mask. It had to be removed for identity verification. The young man hesitated for a moment, but complied. A young face with smooth skin appeared in the camera lens. Amaka wore the simplest mask, printed on a 3D printer. Exquisite, expensive handmade models were eagerly bought by tourists as souvenirs at Lekki Market. They cost absurdly high prices. But Amaka's cheap mask fooled most surveillance cameras in the city just fine. Thanks to the crude creation with a butterfly pattern, Amaka was, in the eyes of artificial intelligence, a faceless person, and that suited him perfectly. The mask not only allowed him to save money, but more importantly, protected him from authorities. He still didn't have an official migrant residence permit. The receptionist led Amaka to a conference room. He sat down and froze, contemplating what to say about his previous work experience. He would have to lie, he decided. There seemed to be no other option. About 10 minutes passed. The promised interviewer still hadn't appeared. Then suddenly the projection wall opposite Amaka lit up. Surveillance camera footage began playing. From the first frames, Amaka recognized the recording. He remembered its smallest details. Midnight, dim, yellow street light. Several homeless people lying under an overpass on makeshift mattresses stuffed with garbage. A thin silhouette emerges from the darkness. A boy approaches the sleeping figures and peers into their faces. Camera zoom. The boy is no more than 5 or 6 years old, white, dressed in striped pajamas, his face pale and expressionless. One of the sleepers wakes with a start and locks eyes with the boy. He asks his name and what he's doing there. The boy mumbles something incoherent and trembles all over. Suddenly his face contorts into a horrific grimace. He opens his mouth, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth. And then the child sinks his fangs into the poor homeless man's neck. The man screams in pain. The others wake up. Blood runs down the boy's lips and chin as he retreats and quickly disappears into the darkness. The video had been posted online under the title, "White Vampire Attacks Homeless in Lagos." In the first 24 hours, the clip had garnered millions of views on the video sharing platform Gary. But a few days later, the platform identified the video as fake and removed it, as the law required. The account of the user who uploaded the file, Enitan0231, was blocked, and all advertising revenue associated with the video was frozen. The video ended. Amaka continued sitting alone, but a loud voice filled the room. "Excellent work, Amaka. A flawless fusion of mise-en-scène, amateur actors, and real-time footage. Hard to believe this was made in an underground internet cafe in Ikeja." The invisible man spoke with a strong Igbo accent. Startled, Amaka jumped up and shouted, "Who are you?" while instinctively looking around. He quickly scanned the empty room and settled on the speakers. "Relax," the invisible stranger chuckled. "You can call me Chi. So, do you need this job or not?" Amaka sighed, sank back into his chair and deflated. She was right. Without a residence permit, he would never find a decent job in Lagos. The mysterious company called Lele was his only hope today. "Why did you choose me?" Amaka asked. "We've seen your work. You're talented and ambitious. You never would have come to Lagos if you weren't hungry for fame. And we need someone we can trust. One of our own." Amaka immediately understood what the mysterious Chi meant. Nigeria has over 250 ethnic groups, each with their own languages and customs, many in conflict for centuries. The Yoruba and Igbo, the second and third largest ethnic groups in the country, had particularly violent clashes in recent years, as both peoples vied for power. Lagos was predominantly Yoruba. Amaka was Igbo from the southeast, so he usually didn't advertise his ethnicity. Who needs trouble? And what's the job? What do I need to do? Amaka had practically already accepted the offer. The questions were just for show. The answers didn't really matter to him. What you do best, making fake videos. That's illegal, I assume? We'll provide you with everything you need. Amaka's pupils narrowed, his nostrils flared. "And if I refuse," he continued, feigning doubt, "will you kill me?" "Kill you?" Chi let out another strange laugh. "Oh no, we'll do something worse." And another video began playing on the projection wall. A private nightclub. A camera in the corner near the ceiling films the center of the dance floor in close-up. Several half-naked guys, wearing only pants, no shirts, languidly writhe under flashing laser lights. The shot zooms in further. One of the guys is Amaka. Suddenly twisting his bare torso, he passionately kisses his neighbor, another guy whose cheeks glow fluorescent pink. Amaka's next kiss With some effort, he has to bend even more. Goes to a dark-skinned man dancing behind him. Freeze frame. 3 young faces like mango leaves overlay each other. Bodies intertwined. They've literally merged. Amaka stared at the wall without blinking, his face expressionless. Several endless seconds passed, and he smirked. Of course, this was a deepfake, hastily thrown together. The raw material came from the camera at the registration desk, since Amaka had been forced to let them scan his face. Not bad. The face might be mine, but you messed up the neck. Amaka pulled down his hood. A long pink scar ran from his right ear to his left collarbone. A souvenir from a street fight. Besides, we're in Lagos. People do crazier things here. Of course, things can be worse, Chi parried. But this video can still send you to prison. And, by the way, think about your family. Amaka fell silent, deflated. Any expression of homosexuality was punished in Nigeria with serious prison sentences. Several decades had passed since the 2013 anti-same-sex marriage law was adopted. But Nigerian society remained hostile and uncompromising towards sexual and gender minorities. Nothing had changed in all those years. Amaka knew perfectly well if someone reported him, criminal charges would follow. But even if not, trouble with the police was guaranteed. And under threat of prison, they would surely extort money from him. And then there was family. In recent years, Amaka's relationship with relatives had grown cold, but he couldn't even contemplate bringing such horror down on their heads, even if the video was fake. He especially pitied his father. He had placed such high hopes in Amaka. The young man pulled up his hood and bit his lower lip, creating an illusion of some protection. I need an advance in cryptocurrency and details. What's the target? I don't want to waste time investigating. As you wish, buddy. As for the target, well, this one's impossible to miss. A blurry frame appeared on the projection wall. When the facial features came into focus, Amaka let out a soft whistle. The Yoruba call Lagos Echo, which translates from their language as farm. Lagos has an equatorial monsoon climate, so June is the coldest month with heavy rains. Amaka lay on a narrow bed in an illegally rented room in a dormitory and listened to the sound of rain. The new job was on a completely different level than all his previous work. Childhood pranks, it seemed, were over. Amaka put on XR glasses and began exploring the new gadget, a dark green Illumiware Mark V. The new job wasn't difficult, due to lack of experience in creating video fakes. Quite the opposite. Last year, Amaka spent many evenings posing as suburban girls on dating sites. To avoid getting caught, he had to gather as much video data as possible, using a search bot. Ideal targets for Amaka were young Yoruba fashionistas in bright booba tops with deep V-necks, hero skirts, extreme minis, essentially small pieces of fabric that hid almost nothing, and hair tucked under gel headscarves. Ideally, the videos should be shot in rooms with bright, stable lighting. Clear faces were needed. This allowed artificial intelligence to make enough digital freeze frames. Then the target's dataset was combined with a dataset of Amaka's own face, under different lighting, from different angles, with various expressions that his smart stream automatically generated. Then Amaka would upload both datasets to the cloud and get to work with a hyper-generative adversarial neural network. After several hours or days, he would get the result: a deep mask model woven from algorithms. By applying it in a video application, he could transform into a girl he had assembled from bits of information. It was absolutely impossible to distinguish this deepfake from real video with the naked eye. If internet speed allowed, Amaka could swap faces in real time for fun, but having fun required hard work. Real-time deception worked only if he simultaneously translated from English or Igbo to Yoruba, used trans-voice software to imitate a Yoruba girl's voice, and open-source tools to synchronize lip movements with the audio track. However, if the person in the chat had splurged on a high-quality deepfake detector, anomalies in the video were automatically detected and marked with red, semi-transparent warning squares. In the early days of deepfake technology, playback could glitch due to insufficient internet speed or exaggerated facial expressions. The image would blur, lips would move out of sync. The glitch might last mere hundredths of a second, but the human brain, evolved over millions of years, usually caught something unnatural. However, by 2041, Deep Mask software, the deepfake successor, had reached such a degree of realism and synchronization that it could fool even human consciousness. Anti-fake detectors had become an integral part of standard cybersecurity configurations. Europe, America, and Asia had even passed corresponding laws, but in Nigeria, verification was required only by major content platforms and government websites. The explanation was simple. Such detectors required enormous computing power and professional skills, and they significantly slowed video playback speed. And when users have to wait, as everyone knows, they tend to switch to something else. Nigerian social networks and video sharing platforms updated their detectors selectively, mainly at times coinciding with the most popular deepfake creation algorithms. The more users shared content, the more closely it was examined. After each such video date, Amaka usually needed silence and darkness. The ascetic setting of the rented room wouldn't let him forget about his harsh life. But emerging from virtual reality, he allowed his mind to linger a bit longer with those sweet guys, melting from their smiles and tender words. "They don't love me," he reminded himself periodically. "They love a Yoruba girl with my face." When Amaka was born, the local soothsayer announced to his father that his newborn son was the reincarnation of a female soul trapped in a male infant's body. Branded with soul-body mismatch, Amaka's entire childhood passed under this stigma, bringing shame to his family. As Amaka grew, he became convinced that he really wasn't like other boys. This was largely why he left the village for progressive Lagos. But things weren't easy here either. Whenever he saw an attractive guy on the metro or in the street, Amaka felt something flutter in his body and soul. Sometimes even simple eye contact could ignite feelings. Amaka knew he would never dare to meet in person the guys he flirted with, virtually. And the more power he discovered in Deep Mask, the more he clung to the mask. It hid his true face. Thanks to it, he could pour out his feelings and experience relief without exposing himself to public condemnation or burning with shame. Amaka tried his best to focus on the order, on the fake video, but there was a knock at the door. It was Ozioma, the room's landlady. She was holding a bowl of sliced kola nut seeds. Ozioma was also Igbo, but had moved to Lagos 20 years ago and completely assimilated. However, upon first meeting Amaka, she had detected his carefully hidden Igbo accent. "Where I come from, only men are allowed to crack kola nuts," Amaka remarked, stuffing his mouth with the treat and savoring the familiar bitterness. "That's exactly why I left." Ozioma giggled. The Yoruba call it obi nut, and the Igbo call it oji. But what's in a name? Either one, once in your mouth, solves all your problems. Oh, the wisdom of the elders. "Thanks for the treat," said Amaka, about to show Ozioma out. But she grabbed his arm and nodded at the glowing monitor. The woman's expression suddenly turned worried. "You and him, there's nothing going on, right? I mean, he's a good-looking guy. It's just, I don't need trouble. You know what I mean." "No, of course not. I was just reading the news. Amaka plastered a carefree smile on his face. Do you think I'm stupid? I still need to get my residence permit. Good for you. God bless him, whichever side he's on. Ozioma left, closing the door behind her. Amaka exhaled with relief, jumped back on the bed, and focused on the monitor again. The man's face radiated power. His forehead and cheeks were covered with white paint, a symbol of tribal spirit. His eyes glowed like two fires. His lips were slightly parted, the corners of his mouth forming a half-smile, as if he were about to speak in the divine language of a new era and take the whole world by storm. Amaka knew this Nigerian well. His name was Fela Kuti. He was a musician, the father of Afrobeat, a fighter for democracy, and had died 45 years ago. Amaka's task was to make the fake even faker. The avatar, a virtual image with Fela Kuti's face, had appeared online and started posting videos on the Gary platform. The resurrected Fela caused a sensation on the internet. The avatar called itself AFAK, an acronym for Avatar of Fela Anikulapo Kuti. The videos contained caustic commentary on current social issues, though it was hard to determine his exact political affiliation. Most people took it as a joke. Everyone knew the real Fela had died in 1997. The face-swapping technology in these videos was laughably crude. Video sharing platforms didn't bother much with banning AFAK videos. They simply labeled the fake as parody. However, AAFK's authority grew, and soon his influence became anything but funny. Millions of Nigerians joined closed chat groups to discuss his videos, examining every frame with a magnifying glass, savoring every syllable. The text was even translated into different dialects, with excellent dubbing and synchronized articulation. Thanks to such high-quality processing, AFAK's messages spread much wider. The official Fela Kuti Foundation issued a statement. The organization was as puzzled by the avatar's origins as everyone else. However, it did not demand that the mysterious character, whoever was behind the account, stop using the musician's image. No one had managed to track down the person behind the nickname. All video information was encrypted. The accounts used to upload videos were disposable and went through multiple proxy servers. A conspiracy theory naturally emerged. What if AFAK was the work of anti-government activists or some hostile foreign power threatening Nigeria's stability? The company Liele, Amaka's new employer, turned out to be a front, a cover for the underground group Gloria Vigbo, and she was just an agent hired to recruit Amaka and manage his further actions. The group had analyzed AFAK's video content and concluded behind the avatar were not foreigners, but Yoruba ultranationalists. They wanted to exploit his popularity and manipulate people's minds, gradually making the avatar's videos more pro-Yoruba and swaying public opinion to their side. It was clear to Amaka, the more power fell into the hands of the already dominant Yoruba, the more they would oppress other ethnic groups, especially the Igbo. Recently, AFAK had called on Igbo-majority states to give up their claims to a new rare earth deposit and proposed making it common property of all Nigerians. This was yet another, and currently the latest, attempt to take away the resources of God-given Igbo land. The Igbo people had always felt like the tail of the lizard that was Nigeria. Cut off, it grows back, cut again, endlessly. Whether the stump hurts, whether it bleeds, no one cared. The Igbo were completely fed up. Amaka's mission was the key to revolution, to achieving the goal set by the Glory of Igbo group. She tasked Amaka with creating fake videos that would undermine the avatar's authority and influence, thus weakening trust in AFAK and, consequently, his control over public opinion. Technically, it wasn't that difficult. Using HGAN, Hypergenerative Adversarial Neural Network, Amaka easily copied AFAK's machine face model. Amaka's model turned out to be a pixel-perfect mirror copy of the AFAK avatar, from blink frequency and lip movement to the quite noticeable mismatch between the mouth contour and surrounding skin. Amaka knew how to set parameters and precisely match each mathematical value of the deepfake to the original. He could fool any fake detector, and certainly any human eye. The hardest part was reproducing speech in AFAK's style. Video topics ranged from socio-political news to puzzling populist claims that ordinary people loved. In his monologues, the avatar would either quote famous words of the real Fela Kuti or spout pearls of folk wisdom. Amaka often struggled to understand what he was saying, let alone imitate his speech. AFAK declared that Nigeria desperately needed a new language that transcended ethnic boundaries to cleanse our minds and tongue of colonial poison. He lamented that Nigerian mothers who suffer most and deserve the sincerest and highest worship, with their own hands welcome the fall and bury the corpses of their numerous children. The avatar proclaimed that music is the weapon of the future, that only when education and wealth are distributed as evenly as a drumbeat permeates the air, can the beating of human hearts merge into a single steady rhythm. Very soon, AAAK's words, like rain falling on sun-scorched earth, began to quench the thirst in Amaka's heart too. No matter how the young man resisted, he felt the avatar's ideas, inspiring him and filling him with hope. Could Chi be wrong about AFAK? Amaka tried to brush off the welling emotions. "I don't need your lousy sense of belonging," he told himself. All he needed now was one thing, a perfect fake of AFAK-style speech that people would believe. A carnival procession flowed through the streets of central Lagos. From deep in his balcony, Amaka watched a troupe of young Nigerians. They swayed and spun rhythmically, gracefully and lightly, like dust motes in sunbeams. The guys' faces were painted white in Fela Kuti's style. The muscles on their bare backs glistened under the scorching sun. Following the rhythm, they raised their arms in unison and shook their wrists, as if casting spells. Music from instruments of different ethnic groups formed a harmonious melody. The piercing thunder of the Yoruba bata drum and the low moans of the dun-dun drum, the metallic ring of the organ bell, and the silvery melody of the Igbo opi flute. The air rang with music like a bowstring being drawn by an archer. The dancers, flexible as young cassava shoots in the rainy season, moved rhythmically to the music. To Amaka, they seemed not separate people, but a single being, as powerful and indivisible as the mantra they repeated. United Nigeria. This was the slogan of AFAK's video campaign. Amaka felt he was about to burst with emotions. On one hand, he envied the dancers and instinctively wanted to join them, but the desire was suppressed by fear of exposure and accusations of betrayal. On the other hand, were these dancers really AFAK followers who wished harm to the Igbo, the people Amaka had distanced himself from, but still loved? But what worried the young man most was Chi's rapidly approaching deadline. With each passing day, Amaka became more convinced that the task before him was absolutely impossible. Amaka began to think that a single AFAK identity simply didn't exist. The avatar was created by a team that relied on the video platform's smart tag system and produced clips adapted to different user profiles. They precisely tailored key themes, slogans, tone, and gestures to each specific audience's needs, like an advertising agency catering to a particular demographic group's needs and desires. Creating just a deepfake was one thing, but creating a deepfake with multiple different identities was quite another, and that was beyond Amaka's skills. For some unfathomable reason, realizing this brought relief. However, now the young man had to face the consequences of failing the mission Chi had assigned him. "Why don't you join them?" Ozioma's voice came right over his ear. The landlady stepped from the room onto the balcony, greeting Amaka with a nudge, lit an English cigarette, leaned on the railing, and looked down. "You know I was once the queen of dancing in our village." Ozioma's gaze grew misty. She was nostalgic. "Really, I'm not bragging. Guys couldn't take their eyes off me. Father hated it when I danced. He threatened to beat me every time he caught me dancing." "And did you obey?" Ozioma laughed heartily. "What child gives up what they love just because their parents forbid it? I found a way to at least finish the dance." "How?" "Before I started dancing, I always put on the Agbogo Emwo." "What?" Amaka's eyes nearly popped out of his head. Agbogo Emwo was a sacred mask of the northern Igbo, an embodiment of maiden spirits, and also the mother of all living things. Exactly. Father had the same look on his face when he saw me in the mask. All he could do was bow and show respect to the mask and the goddess it represented. Of course, later, when the dance ended and I took off the mask, I got a thrashing. Ozioma beamed with pride. The memories briefly returned her to youth, when she was so bold and resourceful. Ozioma's story stirred some idea in Amaka's head. It churned like a huge fish in the depths, then began rolling from side to side and thrashing its tail. Amaka thoughtfully wrinkled his nose and even muttered aloud, "The mask. Yes, my child. The mask, that's what gave me power," Ozioma echoed. She was apparently still there. "And what if you take off the mask, tear off the mask?" Amaka muttered, suddenly deaf to everything. He suddenly rushed to Ozioma, swept her up in his arms and kissed her loudly on the nose, shouted, thank you, my dancing queen," and bolted into the room, leaving behind the commotion of the carnival procession and a completely bewildered woman. If you put obvious lies in AFAK's mouth, it won't make followers turn away. He's an idol. Amaka explained that same day in a video chat with his handler, Chi. The young man was extremely excited by the unexpected discovery. But if you unmask him and expose the hidden essence of the puppeteer, that will definitely help. But nobody knows who the puppeteer is, Chi doubted. Exactly, Amaka beamed. Don't you see? Since nobody knows him, the puppeteer can be anyone. So you're suggesting to tear off AFAK's mask and make him whoever you want. Chi was silent for quite a while, then finally muttered, "You're a fucking genius." Niduo, Amaka said goodbye in Igbo, about to exit the chat. "Wait," Chi called out, "but then we need to create a face that exists in reality." "Yes, exactly. And it has to fool all the anti-fake filters," Chi added thoughtfully. "We need to account for color distortion, noise structure, compression degree variations, blink frequency, biosignal. Is this even doable? I need time," Amaka nodded. "And unlimited cloud AI computing power. I'll be in touch," she said, and disconnected. The screen went dark. Amaka didn't move and studied his reflection. The adrenaline that had initially flooded him had evaporated somewhere. Now Amaka's face showed not excitement, but fatigue and anxiety. He felt as if he had just betrayed the guardian spirit watching over him from heaven. Theoretically, anyone could create a fake image and insert it into video, and bypassing anti-fake filters wasn't a big problem. The problem was the cost. The computing power required for this was enormous. Deepfakes and their detectors existed in a state of eternal struggle, like Eros and Thanatos. The task before Amaka was incredibly complex, but he was determined to achieve his single goal, to create a real human face. Chi proposed a new scheme. AFAK should be stripped of his digital Fela Kuti mask and shown as the well-known Repo, a Yoruba politician notorious for endless attacks on other ethnic groups and a chief enemy of the United Nigeria movement. Once Chi and his team showed that Repo was pulling the strings, that he was behind the charismatic and inspiring AFAK figure, people's faith in the avatar would crumble to dust. But first, the video fabricated by Amaka would have to pass verification by millions of eyes, both human and AI, including the VIP detector. The program, nicknamed VIP Detector, was developed to protect the reputation of public figures, politicians, government officials, celebrities, athletes, scientists. These prominent individuals left too noticeable a digital trail, making them especially attractive targets for deepfakes. The VIP detector was meant to protect these super points of cyberspace from possible fraud or other destructive actions. Otherwise, social order could be damaged. Websites publishing images or videos of famous people were required to apply a special deepfake detection algorithm before publishing content. The VIP detector employed numerous technologies, from ultra-high-resolution facial recognition to gesture recognition and palm and finger geometry sensors, speech assessment, and even vein recognition. This data was fed into the VIP detector's deep learning AI system. If the protected subject was particularly important, the VIP detector even stored their medical history in its database. It was clear that Repo, with his social status and controversy, fell into this category. But Amaka was confident the VIP detector had flaws too. If he could decode its operating principle, he could definitely find gaps in the overlapping input data chains and exploit them. Even if these loopholes were very narrow, whoever seeks, as they say, always finds, and squeezes through sideways. And so Amaka, using real Repo video as a base, began, like some 21st century Frankenstein creator, to stitch his face together layer by layer. Lips, eyes, nose. AI assisted. Every tiny movement, every fleeting gesture in the fake video came from Repo himself, minimizing the probability that an anti-fake detector would spot the forgery. Amaka started by using XR vision technology to create a three-dimensional workspace for himself. He waved his hands, selected, dragged objects, zoomed in and out. Icons and video fragments floated in the air and were controlled by various gestures. Amaka would have preferred to see himself as a wizard performing magic, but for now, he looked more like a cooking show star preparing an author's dish. For each part of Repo's body, Amaka carefully selected the most effective open-source program, like a chef selecting and placing raw ingredients for a future dish in appropriate containers. Then, as if seasoning the dish with various spices, he adjusted parameters, models, and the learning algorithm, and finally brought it all to a boil on a cloud AI platform at maximum computing power heat. Each set of GAN-processed video resources generated a series of thumbnails that formed an endless gallery in the virtual workspace. A long row of posters featuring various parts of Repo's body. Meanwhile, behind this wall of posters, a fierce battle unfolded. In the cloud, in complete silence, the positive and negative poles of GAN were fighting. The Forger Network and the Investigator Network. The first sought to retrain and modernize itself to create maximally realistic images capable of fooling anti-fake detectors. These images, based on feedback from the Investigator Network, and thanks to it, were supposed to minimize the loss function value of the generated image. The Investigator Network, conversely, sought to increase the loss function value. This battle, with stakes rising every millisecond, would repeat millions of times until the sides reached a certain balance. Parameter adjustment, another model iteration. With each subsequent adjustment, Amaka became convinced. The video was becoming more and more realistic. He had nearly gone blind from the endlessly flickering multicolored pixels, but continued staring at the frames in the XR vision field that were practically indistinguishable from each other. Sweat streamed down the young man's face, but it didn't bother Amaka's nimble fingers flying across the keyboard. From time to time, an annoying whisper arose in his ears, distracting and irritating, like the voice of an evil Ogbanji spirit forever stuck in suspension between life and death. "You're killing a god with your own hands," the voice whispered. "He's not my god. He's Yoruba," Amaka objected, forcing himself not to get distracted. Finally, the fake video brilliantly bypassed the filter. It managed to fool the VIP detector. Amaka only had enough strength to take a step toward the bed. He collapsed face down and fell asleep instantly. An unfamiliar voice called Amaka by name. A dark shadow swayed at the foot of the bed. Terrified, Amaka tried to feel for the light switch. His fingers wouldn't obey. The shadow was approaching, and then he made out the face. It was AFAK. "What do you want?" Amaka gasped. "Don't be afraid, my child. I heard your call and came to look at you." AFAK smiled in the darkness, and the smile seemed quite sincere. "But I didn't. I didn't want to hurt you," Amaka whispered in a trembling voice. AFAK suddenly burst out laughing, and it sounded like the roar of an African leopard. "No, one can hurt me, my child. Not you, not them. Them. The people trying to strangle Nigeria's future and lure you into the night jungle through deception. I'm very sorry, AFAK, but I had no choice." "No, there is a choice, my child. Go to Nollywood. Don't look for the easy way out. Tell the world a real Nigerian story." Amaka couldn't utter a word, couldn't look away from the pixelated figure standing by the bed. "I really always wanted to tell my story," he thought. "The story of an Igbo caught between traditional and changing reality. My guardian spirit left me because I left my land and went to Yoruba land," Amaka stammered. "Nonsense," AFAK interrupted, and Amaka suddenly realized he knew this voice. "Do you remember when you were little? I was little. I showed you different birds and told you their names. I showed you which tree makes the best slingshot. I told you how to make a flute from elephant grass. Have you forgotten everything? My father taught me all of that." Amaka fell silent in amazement, his eyes widening. "Exactly, my child. Remember the Igbo folk saying, when a person says yes, their guardian spirit has no choice but to say yes too. It's only people who abandon their god. God never abandons them." "But father, I don't want to let you down." Amaka remembered Chi's threat to disgrace his entire family and almost whispered, "There's something I never told you." "What?" "I don't care what the soothsayer said at your birth, and I don't care whose soul lives in my child's body. I only want him to be happy, to be kind, and to honor the gods and spirits." "Father," Amaka reached toward AFAK's silhouette. He wanted to remove his mask and see his father's dear, weathered face. "Go to New Afrika Shrine. I'm sure you'll be able to make the right choice. And then come back to me." Amaka had almost reached him. His fingertips were about to touch the flickering pixelated face, but AFAK suddenly vanished. Amaka woke up. The nightlight was on. From the dark green screen of the Illumiware Mark V monitor, a familiar face smiled. The graffiti-covered New Afrika Shrine building in Ikija could easily be mistaken for a half-ruined garage. However, the building's lack of architecture was more than compensated by the energy of the place. Weekly concerts were held in the 2,000-capacity venue. It housed all sorts of food and drink kiosks, and it was a thriving business. Fela Kuti opened the Afrika Shrine nightclub in the Empire Hotel, but in 1977, the police burned the club down. This was already the club's reincarnation. Opened in 2000 by Femi, Fela's son, in memory of his father. Amaka had been to Afrika Shrine many times. Like any young person in Lagos who loved having a good time, he saw it not only as a suitable party venue with food and drinks, but also as a temple, a place of pilgrimage. Here you could connect with the rebellious and free spirit of young people who lived half a century ago. In this special place, people magically forgot about all ethnic and class conflicts and enjoyed life, even if under the influence of alcohol. But today, Amaka had come to say goodbye to all of this. At Afrika's Shrine, both the old one he never saw and the new one, they sacredly preserved memory and glorified black gods and goddesses. Kwame Nkrumah, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Thomas Sankara, Nelson Mandela, Esther Ibanga, Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, Florence Ozor. Great souls who devoted their lives to freedom, democracy, and equality. Artists at this club often interrupted their performances to pay tribute to their cultural ancestors. Amaka watched intently, silent, trying to better remember all the faces. He prayed for these gods and spirits to protect him in the future too. He would leave Lagos, return home, and tell his father everything. Amaka hadn't yet decided what he would do next. Perhaps his skill with GAN would help him find a good job, and he would no longer have to make deep fakes, but could help people instead. Or maybe he could get a job in healthcare, say, transferring faces in medical datasets for AI training. And he was also great at colorizing old black and white films and enhancing images. What if he could spread his wings even further and do what he only rarely dared to dream about? Make a real Nollywood film. Amaka already had a great idea for a plot. Coins jingled in his smart stream. The money Chi had promised had arrived. This meant his fake video was as real as it could possibly be. It had spread across the internet, and its impact could be compared in power to a nuclear explosion. In recent years, AI-created videos had provoked a mutiny in Gabon and serious political unrest in Malaysia, and Amaka couldn't bear the thought that his video could play the same terrible role in the history of his native Nigeria. But the choice had already been made. Amaka climbed onto the stage and stood in the very center, directly under the black and white portrait of Fela Kuti, hanging high above, first raising his arms, then extending them forward, as if trying to connect with the power of gods and spirits. I will be the master of my fate and decide myself when death comes to take me, the young man whispered solemnly, as if reciting some magical incantation. These were the words of Fela Kuti himself, explaining his second name Anikulapo. In Yoruba, it means he who carries death in a pouch. Amaka typed something into his smart stream and tossed it into the nearest trash bin. He pulled out his trusty, crude 3D printed mask from his pocket and put it on. Amaka prayed and dreamed of getting as far away as possible before Chi noticed. He would leave Lagos, the huge city covered in Eko Oni Baje. Lagos will not be spoiled, slogans, and return home to the smells of fresh earth. He would destroy a lie by creating another lie. The second video, shot using Deep Mask software he had already uploaded to the internet, it was ready to trigger another explosion. In both the first and second clips, AFAK removed his digital mask, revealing Repo's face underneath. A perfect deepfake that easily passed all anti-fake filters. But the second clip didn't end there. The avatar continued removing masks. After AFAK comes Repo's mask, then another mask under that mask, then another, layer after layer, to infinity. Nigerians would be amazed. Behind AFAK were all the gods and goddesses revered by the regulars of New Africa Shrine.